Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White, where we discuss the issues and the solving of the problems here in the African American communities and the underserved communities that we all know of. Tonight, we have a guest. We have Mr. Wayne Dawson as our guest. Wayne Dawson, or as many fondly call him, Coach Wayne VIP, a seasoned professional with a heart dedicated to leadership and youth development. Let's dive into his fascinating journey. Wayne's roots track back to Kingston, Jamaica, where his knack for breathing new life into struggling Caribbean resorts like Aruba, the Bahamas, and St. Martin earned him a reputation as a transformative force in the hospitality industry. Venturing into the vibrant streets of New York, Wayne found his calling as a campus director at the beloved Dunleavy Milbank Center, a hub of positivity under the wings of the Children's Aid nonprofit. With other 2 decades of experience, Wayne has been a driving force within the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, nurturing the young minds of tomorrow. A proud alumnus of the City University of New York, Wayne's educational journey led him to a master's in social work from Hunter College and a bachelor's degree in honors from City College. Returning as an adjunct professor, Wayne shares his wealth of knowledge across various academic departments. Not one too shy away from making a difference, Wayne, alongside like minded individuals, co founded Harlem Men Stand Up, a beacon of support for disenfranchised Black men through impactful networking and resource sharing, efforts that have rightfully earned him the recognition and praise from Governor Patterson. Since, since laying roots in sunny South Florida back in 2014, Wayne has been instrumental in leading a dynamic learned and development team within a Fortune 100 company during a period of unprecedented growth. A natural on the stage, Wayne's engaging talks of Black youth development and Black male empowerment resonate deeply with his audiences. At the helm of VIP Transformative Living LLC, Wayne wears the hat of founder and CEO, using his certified life coach skills to guide men of color through the twists and turns of midlife transitions. When he's not empowering others, Wayne indulges in a vegan lifestyle, working out in local gym, practicing on the golf range, perfecting his target shooting skills, and delving into African studies. Family is Wayne's cornerstone in finding joy in every moment spent with his wife, Dr. Audrey Dawson, and their beautifully blended family of 7 adult offsprings and 3 grandkids. Wayne's impactful work hasn't gone unnoticed. Recognized as 3 grandkids, Wayne's impactful work hasn't gone unnoticed, recognized as the role model of the week by influencer Tony Tocumbo, Atika Fernandez, and Loaded as men to watch of 2024 honoree by Black leaders worldwide. A valued member of the esteemed Black executive men, Wayne fosters an excellent as facilitator for his elite cohort, embodying mentorship and community spirit. Through his down to earth approach, Wayne has inspired countless men of color to embrace lives full of purpose and fulfillment. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you Mr. Wayne. Hey, Wayne.
Hey, good afternoon.
Hey,
And
how are you?
how are you, Brother Charles?
I am excellent. Thanks for joining us this evening. How's everything going?
Doing wonderful here in South Florida. We had some liquid sunshine blessing us, as is the custom here in South Florida. So we're happy. We give thanks.
Oh, that's what that look, that's the South Florida way, right?
Yes, sir.
So, is there anything you'd like to add to your bio that I just read?
I'd like to get it back so I could edit it. It says a lot and more than I care to speak on tonight, but I thank you for being so kind, sir. I have spent lots of years compiling some of the background information that you just spoke to. So I'm grateful for that opportunity as well. Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you, for what America in Black and White stands for, I want to I appreciate you, not only for the things that you do, but for the communities that you've helped to inject some positivity into those areas and some inspiration.
Yes, sir. I thank you so much. It's a mission, the work around the work that I do around Black youth, Black men, Black families, ultimately, is truly a mission driven work. My friend Sean Dove says, "Stop stalling your calling." And when he said that several years ago, I recognized that it was time to just let go and go full throttle in doing this work.
Well, I guess we'll just drive right on in. Can you tell us and tell the audience, as a leadership coach, what key qualities do you believe are essential for effective leadership, especially within the Black community?
I got to tell you that one of the things that is very evident to me is the importance of recognizing that leadership doesn't always appear to be in the front. You can lead from the rear, you can lead from being in alignment with someone else. And so, as a leadership coach, we have to be agile and we have to be able to pivot on the spot as needed. Especially, we're doing a lot of cross generational leadership now. It's the first time in our history that there are the interfacing of 5 generations right now, right? From the
Right.
silent generation all the way through to generation the Zers. And it means that as a leader, one has to be able to connect. Now, leadership is nothing more, as John Maxwell says, nothing more than influence. And so, how do we influence others? We have to be able to develop rapport, connect. And I think one of the key things that I've discovered in the work that I do with the brothers I work with is the ability to have empathy, standing in somebody else's shoes and seeing things from another perspective than your own. So those are some of the key elements that I help brothers to realize in their journey as to become great leaders.
Well, all those wonderful things that you're speaking of when you're talking about leadership. Now there's one thing that I probably need some help with, and I want you to explain if you can for me. Like when you said the leadership from the rear, how does that actually work?
Well, that's understanding that as a leader, you don't have to thump your chest and take credit for everything. There are
Okay.
things that you can do. You can generate activities. You can generate uh, you can be effective by not being prominent and taking the spotlight. And so give credit where credit is due. And if you are a leader, everything stops with you. Roosevelt says the buck stops here on his desk, right? President Roosevelt. So, what we're
Yeah.
talking about as a leader is recognizing that you have to take ownership for the results, the outcomes of your team, whether win or lose. And in so doing, it's important to also give credit and to give folks, we don't have all the answers. As a leader, you don't have to be able to do all the stuff. What you need to be able to do is to share the vision and to motivate people, encourage them, and help them have the resources and use the resourcefulness to be able to complete their task. As such, you can do this quietly or, as I say, leading from the rear.
Oh wow. So can you tell us, do you have or do you partake in creating an enormous amount of workshops when we talk about leadership? Or how do you actually get to work with the people that you're working with in leadership?
Custom, not one shoe fit all. I have currently designed an e course that I'm currently in the middle of working on one for leaders in terms of corporate, but I have one that talks about leading self because to be a great leader, you don't have to look externally. It begins internally. And so the work that I do oftentimes helps individuals to find their full potential from within, find your inner strength. And yes, I do in terms of the coaching that I do at VIP Transformative Living. What we do is simply help people, help brothers find themselves and draw from within to produce their best and highest self. I call it to become bigger, better, and bolder. And of course, if someone employs me or hires me to do work with an organization, I will custom make for them. And that's pretty easy to do. I've been doing this so long, the track that they need, because I'm serving you. I'm answering your needs, not creating a package that just fits into what I want to give you. Did I
Okay.
answer the question?
Could you share a success story where your coaching helped a client overcome career challenges and achieve their goals?
Lots of them if you go to my website, but I'll share, which is VIPtransformativeliving.com. There are scores of video testimonials. And so let's talk about a young man that recently, and I can't share details without permission, right? But a young man that recently came on board. His he's a part of, he's a doctor, and so the family business, they have a series or several outfits, several offices, and they're young gentlemen. And so the owner, the proprietor and founder of the business, wanted to make sure that he honed their leadership skills. You know, they are, in his mind, not as focused, not as disciplined, but they're great providers, but he wanted leadership in them. And so we contracted for 3 months, 90 days. Actually, I gave them more than that because I always do. And during those 90 days, we identified what some of their own concerns were. So we did an assessment, which is what I always do. And we got right in and started doing some work. The important thing is that you, the coachee, has to have a state of readiness. For us to be a good fit, it's not just what I'm spewing, it's what you're willing to do the work with. And one of the offices, both saw tremendous growth, but one of the offices, by implementing some strategies in terms of leadership skill sets, he was able to report that 2 consecutive months, and we only worked for 3 months, they had a 100% increase in revenue.
Oh, wow. So, in your experience, how does self awareness impact leadership effectiveness?
Most important, we got to begin with the awareness, as some folks uh, mislabel the idea of wokeness. We have to have a sense of internal wokeness. We have to know and admit to ourselves, because we are oftentimes our worst barriers. If we're not ready to do the work, if we're not committed, not just willing to participate, but to commit fully to do the work on ourselves, if we have not admitted to ourselves that there are areas, you know, sometimes our egos need to be deflated. And for us to get the work done, we have to set aside that false sense of we are great in all things and recognize that we can always call on external help, the troops. And once we are able to do that, then the work can begin.
Okay.
Authenticity is required.
And so, normally, is this like one of the things that is part of like the process of your actual coaching, or is this some of the things that you teach, people in order to adjust and become strong leaders?
Yeah. Now, as a coach, I want to clarify a few things. I don't see myself as a teacher. I've done that.
Okay.
I've done adjunct professorship work, and I teach in workshops and so forth, and I've mentored. But in coaching, what we do is we're, imagine a jet flying at the 40,000 feet level. So as a coach, we're seeing what's down on the runway at that area, that level. We're then able to see blind spots because we have that 360 degrees. And what we're able to do then with that perspective is to share through an assessment, but also through self-ownership, having the person own their strengths and their limitations. We're then able to, I believe, that everyone has the potential to answer their own questions, to solve and resolve their own issues. What I do as a coach is help people to be able to see the blind spots and find their truest, highest selves and apply it. So that's what I do as a coach.
Okay. So then, can I ask you this also? Because that's really good stuff there. But philosophically, does this also help them with, let's say, if they're lacking critical thinking skills?
Oh, absolutely. You know, we teach folks how to think. So here's what a construct that I have at VIP Transformative Living. When you want change to happen, right, your outcome is based on your belief system. If we help people with their belief system, which oftentimes in the Black community is a false belief, one of, and we'll get into it, remind me, the Paul syndrome that I want to share. But once we recognize that we have to change your belief system, your belief affects your values, values affects your thoughts affects your feelings affect your actions repeated over time becomes your habits produce your outcomes, Charles, is your personal reality, or what is then termed your personality. So if you want to change a person to become a leader, right? Their personality, their identity, their right. You have to work with the level at the level of beliefs and thinking. As a man
Okay.
thinketh, they say, so is he. So if, in terms of critical thinking, the person then has to, and sometimes that word is tossed around, but sometimes we have to get folks to start thinking differently so that they can ask the right questions. The power of coaching is to be able to listen intently and to ask powerful questions. But we teach people to ask themselves those critical, powerful questions.
Okay. What strategies do you recommend for maintaining work and life balance, particularly for Black men in midlife?
And so, again, that's one of those throwing a blanket over it. It depends on the person, right? So,
Mhm.
again, work life balance is a misnomer. There is no such thing, right? It's more integration. How do you manage and integrate your world of work with your personal life, your family life, and so forth? And it's really about the discipline. It's recognizing that there has to be a turn on and a sign off in terms of the world of work, right? Nobody ever goes to their deathbed says, I wish I spent more time at the office, right? So part of the challenge is to have folks know when enough is enough. And if you're in a relationship with others outside of yourself, which should make sense because that's healthy, you want to be able to discipline yourself. In my home, for example, my wife and I, we've never had a television in our bedroom. It's not the place for that. And now we have instituted that we check our phone outside. So she bought an alarm clock. So if we want to get ourselves up rather than being tempted to check the phone and see more blue screens, so an hour before we go to sleep, we put away the phones, and she's using an alarm clock, right? When she gets up a little bit earlier than I do. I'm working from the office and she travels a little bit out. She opens the blinds, and so the sun comes in through the filtered sun comes in through the blinds and wake me up. What am I saying? Uh, you just have to find what works for you in your situation and be mindful and recognize that too much of anything, even a good thing, is no thing. If you drink too much water, you can become toxic.
Yes. Yeah. So, and speaking of this wonderful work you're doing with men in midlife, what brought you to the point that you wanted to make that a niche and make that a priority?
It's a great question. Thank you. Charles, I think I shared with you, and the bio may have said it. I spent about 20 years working for one of the country's oldest non-for-profits and in youth development when I lived in New York. And I was part of a team that also trained nationally in terms of youth development. I oversaw 4 locations of the flagship site of 42 locations across the tri-state. And and this was during the period when there was the crack epidemic. So what I was seeing was Black youth showing up with grandmas and moms, and dads were missing because this was also intertwined with the war on drugs. So the men folks were not present. And we saw what that led to in terms of the young people who came out of the 80s, right? It was not a beautiful situation. As I grew up over the years, and I was doing that work maybe late 30s through my 40s, but as I evolved myself, the group that I was with also evolved. But I got sick and tired of hearing people blame the youth. It's happening today. And I recognize that we, so-called elders, us going through the journey, midlife and beyond, we had an accountability and a responsibility to put our hands out, and by modeling behavior, mentoring, coaching, and guiding the youth, we had to do this work. And so I thought it was important. Plus, I also thought I was now more, it was easier to identify with men 20 years my junior than men 40 years my junior, so to speak. And so I decided to do this work, to take it on. See, Charles, I believe strongly that if we work on the Black man individually, we better the Black family. If we better the Black family, we better the Black community. Better the Black community, we better the Black society, the nation, and so on. So that's the work.
Well, I definitely, I hope that people got a lot from what you just said, because that means more than anything in the world. They're building our communities, and we've got so many ways of actually doing it. But the thing is, how do we make this like a continuous thing to where it's always it's happening on the continuum where everything is just relevant, that it does not like start and then it stops. How do we keep it going?
If I had the answer to that, I'd be a multi-millionaire, because there is no, I don't think we can say an all or always or every for any situation, Charles. I think the first place is home, self. Each of us has a sense of responsibility to ourselves, to be honest and authentic, to show up fully and authentically, and to look at ourselves and do that assessment and say, am I delivering the best of me today? And am I my brother's keeper? Am I taking care of the family? Is this action that I'm doing? I tell brothers all the time, cut out the cheating. Napoleon Hill, in his book, Think and Grow Rich, has a section he talks about transmutation. And he says that when he has tracked the richest men in the world when the book was written, right? And it's still a bestseller today after over 80 years out there. And he tracked 500 of the richest men and studied them. And what he found was that the majority of men got their highest level, their zenith of fulfillment, success in life after midlife, after 40. And when they had settled with one partner. So the men who had married and were focused on sustaining that relationship, in other words, they weren't out there planting seeds and getting wild and cheating on the world, that energy that they would have dissipated all over was focused on building something. And so they broke into businesses, they broke into opportunities, entrepreneurship, community involvement. And I say that to say this: when we are true to ourselves and we're focused and we're living on purpose, then the ecology spills over. It means that the people, places, and things that we come in contact with benefit from us too. And that's how we spread this thing.
How do you address mental health concerns with your clients? And what roles does mental well being play in leadership?
Well, my wife is a licensed psychologist, so I'm sure to have a line of demarcation. If someone comes in and have a diagnosis, um, I'm going to refer them out or strongly suggest, if they see me in the application process and they tell me that they have some mental health issues, I'll sometimes have them. I don't take every client, by the way. I'm not one of those guys. If we're not a good fit, I'm going to refer you out to get help. And so that's where I begin. In terms of clients, um, again, if you have issues, and listen, I don't know a black man that doesn't have an area of traumatic injury, and we normalize this generationally. We have had that, right? If you and I jump in the car right now and decide to go to the next state, and halfway through we realize that, oops, we left our wallet in another pocket or something, we start panicking. We worry. Our white counterparts don't necessarily go through that, right? They can flip something else, and it's a lot cooler. So
Right.
the trauma we have getting up in a community where, if you live in the community, you're scared to run on the streets in your shorts and be stopped by the cops because you don't belong there. That's trauma. That type of mental health stress, duress, afflicts all of us at some level. And some people have more intense levels of mental wellness issues. And so when I work with brothers in the corporate or non-for-profit or entrepreneurial or governmental area, and these things come up, we will have a discussion. But again, self-care is where it all begins. We talked about that balance before. And so if you want to get in there and compete with the big boys, you got to take care of yourself. And it begins again internally. So physical health, emotional health, mental health, for me, are primary. Yes, we'll get to financial health, but those things, to me, are the staple in terms of overall wholeness.
What advice would you give to Black men navigating midlife career changes or transitions?
To be sure, we talked about the ego, do not be pressured out of your situation just because you feel some kind of way, somebody's stressing you. Don't let somebody push you out before you're ready to go. Uh, Make sure that you have your non-negotiables in terms of your values, and the company's values, its mission, so that you're not just jumping out of the, as they say, frying pan and into the fire. The other thing that you want to do is make a real assessment in terms of, what do you want? And so midlife is a place where oftentimes we come to grips with where we have been, what we have gotten, and where we need to be. And most of us, by midlife, with the experience we have, I call it, we move from a stage of aging to a stage of saging. We start getting wiser. We start understanding from past mistakes where not to step again. And at this point, a lot of us, have spent our early lives living to somebody else's drum beats. Our parents said, go out and go to med school. Our neighbors are living a certain lifestyle. We just need to get food on the table when we came out of college or school or whatever, and we grabbed the first job that was available. And so 80%, according to a Gallup study recently, 80% of people in their jobs hate their jobs. in the USA. People are just showing up in rote because it's paying the bills. So if you are at the stage where it's time to find some peace, significance, fulfillment, which you have earned and deserve, it's your birthright. Don't just make a midlife decision because you just want to change, but make an assessment. Look at your strengths. What I call find out where your uniqueness lies, your unique selling proposition. We call it your Z zone or your zone of genius, your G zone, your G spot. Find out where that is. The more you can craft your next position to live that, the happier you will be. And the more you can serve others and add value, remuneration follows. See, it's value first, money second. And so don't chase the dollar, chase alignment with values and mission. Make sure that you are on purpose. And again, sometimes you don't even have to change from one company to another. And these days, that's not so easy unless you truly are strategic. But what you may want to do is craft where you are, the job you have, and look for opportunities even where you are before you move outside. If that makes sense.
It does. And can I just ask you though, with all that being said, like, is there like, or should there be like any kind of unification with these individuals, especially when it comes to things that they want to do, not just in life but in their communities? Should there be some kind of unity?
I think I may have missed what
Well,
you
when I
asked.
say unity, I'm talking about, as they're growing, not only are they unifying with family with the things that they're trying to accomplish, should they also try to work this out to make it a little bit expansive and broader within their communities?
The greatest test you have is family. If a man learns to lead and manage family, he is being prepared to manage any other group. It's the first institution that you have where you are working in terms of learning to listen, have empathy, lead, uh, you know, direct, be led. And so once you manage the home community, I keep going back to that. See, the Black family is the key to our success. There is nowhere that people are building bridges in places where it's going to collapse because the fundamental, which is the structure, what we call family, and the family may look differently to some people, but family is the key because the family is nothing more. When you looked at tribes, as it were, from where we've, our African brothers and sisters, you have the clan, and the clan extends itself, and you have a tribe, and so forth, right? So
Mhm.
if you're not taking care of the individual and managing that well, taking on a job as a leader for some other groups and creating yourself as a leader for other clans must fail. If you're a tyrant at home, it's just a matter of time before that's going to seep out in the workplace, in the community. So you got to be able to quell those kinds of uh, ill adapted leaders from early, I think. But to answer your question, yes, we have to think in terms of one of my mentors, Dr. Leonard Jeffries of City College. He used to say, "Kill the ego. It's about the we go." It's for the Black man and woman. It's understanding what he calls the three C's, right? cooperation,
Okay.
collaboration, and communal living. And so and that's a community. So yes, if we
Right.
practice those fundamental principles, the American idea of pull yourself off by the bootstrap, that Daniel Boone stuff doesn't work for us. It doesn't work. We
Right.
can't do it alone. Sorry to be so long-winded, but yeah.
Oh no, but that's a wonderful explanation, and but it helps me to understand that much more. But I'm going to say that maybe I asked that question wrong, so I definitely appreciate that clarification because it really makes sense.
Thank you. There are no wrong answers.
Uh,
Or wrong questions, rather. Yes. Go ahead. Sorry.
so, how do you help clients identify and overcome limiting beliefs that may hinder their personal and professional growth?
Beautiful question. Beautiful question, sir. I appreciate it. So, the VIP Transformative Living Program, one of my signature approaches when I'm meeting with folks is to identify where on the scale is that barrier. And what I've discovered is that one of three areas, I call it the pause syndrome, is the reason why we, as Black men, white men, whomever, are stuck or aren't fulfilling our promise, right? Aren't at the level we should be. And the pause syndrome stands for we don't put P, we don't think it's possible. We don't think it's possible. We may say so, but subconsciously, there's something that's underwriting that thought that makes it not possible for us. Two is A, ability. We don't think we are able or capable. And people with the imposter syndrome oftentimes show up because of that sense of we don't think it's capable or ability. Paul, right? PAW. And number three, the big one that affects most Black men that I work with is worthiness. We don't think we're deserved to be at the table anyway. Why is that? Because in this country and in the Western world, and now, in fact, all over when you travel, Black folks have been buying into a narrative that is false and that we're not enough, that we're not smart enough, tall enough, dark enough, educated enough, good enough. And so if you hear that all the time, your brain is entrained into that thinking. So when I see Black men, I first try to identify through a series of skilled questions where they are along that level of syndrome, the pause syndrome. And oftentimes it's a combination of two or all three. And what we have to do is to change the false belief. And that's where the work comes in.
Okay. What role does emotional intelligence play in leadership development?
Powerful question again. Boy, you got me on my toes today, Charles. It's very important because emotional intelligence is, and we have to tap in and find it. It's recognizing that we can feel the other person. It's about empathy. It's about recognizing that our perspective is not the rule, it's not the law, and that being able to listen keenly and be in another person's shoe is just as important, if not more important, than your stuff, right? Make people feel validated. I'm from Jamaica, Charles, and I saw in Jamaica a lot of love and peace. My family was always tight, but I've seen fights, street fights, and we've been involved in them. The one thing you hear people say whenever there's a street fight or a fight anywhere is, you didn't respect me. I felt disrespected. People will throw it down for feeling disrespected. And so part of emotional intelligence is to respect the other man, the other person, and to give them an ear and make them feel real. And so, as a leader, each person that you speak with, they want to know that when you say, "Good morning, how are you?" in the elevator, you're standing up long enough to hear them say, "Oh, well, I'm not well today." You're not just saying it and then you stepping out when you get on your floor and leave them standing, which oftentimes we do, right? So, yes, it's very important.
So, can you tell us? Could you share this with us? Could you share insights on building resilience and coping with stress in high pressure leadership roles?
It goes back to self care. Stress is not necessarily a bad thing, it's out there. And stress it's like this bottle of water, right? I could use this water and throw it over my head. I could drink it. I could water a plant. It's water. It's the tool and how I use it. Stress appears the same way. Uh, Stress is a response. A thing is not stress. Stress is our response. And so, what we have to learn to do is to curate our responses to whatever is going around so that we can manage it, so that we're not feeling overwhelmed, overworked, beaten up. And there are several ways to do this. Life management is time management. If we, for example, one of the strategies I teach folks is how to delegate responsibility and how to delegate so that when you delegate, you let it go, right? There's a strategy behind that. Everything we do with a strategy. What a coach is able to do, what I'm able to do, is to identify the strategy you're using because we have patterns. And so what we do for stressors is we help you to develop success patterns or successful patterns that work for you. If you're doing something and you do it all the time, it doesn't mean it's the right thing. We have to help you identify, is it working for you? Because everything we do, Charles, has a payoff. Even when it's negative, it gives us a payoff in our mind. And so, I
Right.
mean, there are people who are afraid to win. They're afraid of success, believe it or not. So
Yes.
with stress, Charles, I would say I help people to pull away, and there's techniques and exercises that we help people with.
Well, I think, for black men in particular.
Yes, sir.
Now, we're always in high stress situations, and there are things that jump up and happen that it causes us to stress. So, even with that great leadership coaching, that you do and helping, what are some things that we can do that can actually make that a little bit of an at ease situation when stressful things happen?
Yeah. And by the way, nothing you said that causes us to stress that we choose. It's a
Yeah.
decision, right?
Okay.
It's a decision. Two people faced with jumping out of a plane, one wets his pants and the other screams in ecstasy, right? So it's a decision and it's our
Right.
response to it. Now, some of the practical tools that I offer, for example, believe it or not, meditation, breathing, right? People in public speaking. I help people in the back of the room take deep breath, stand in a victory stance, right? Shake it out. And, I never tell people to see the room as nude, but I guess if that works for you, fine. Some folks will say that. But what I help people to do is to, as they say, feel the butterflies, but allow them to fly in formation. Yes. And so don't let the stress lead you. Own it, label it. Where are you feeling the stress? Is it in your stomach? Then perhaps you need to deep breathe from your abdomen. Is it in your shoulders? Maybe you need to shake it out. All right. Maybe you need to do some push-ups before you get on stage. How about journaling? If you're having a lot on your mind, perhaps it makes sense to write it down. How about seeking a coach or a therapist? So there are multitude of ways that one can manage stress. And each of us, again, it's not one shoe fit all. Whatever, music. When I run, for me, it's orgasmic. I go out and I run in the park versus on the gym on a treadmill, right? Because I like to be out there with nature. And if my wife isn't with me or my niece, I put my headphones on and I'm listening to something, right? So for me, that's stress free. Going into the gym, that's stress free.
So that's a great lead in for this next question. Um,
Yes, sir.
what strategies do you use to enhance communication skills in your coaching session?
Now it depends on where the person is, because coach communication comes in many forms, right? There's a receiver, there's the sender, those who are interpreting it, like the bystander. All of these folks are part of the whole communication team, so to speak. And so, if it's communication skills as far as developing rapport, we use some strategies to develop rapport. For example, looking at eyes, the cues that people have in their eyes. It's very complicated, but it's part of NLP, neuro linguistic programming, that says your eye is an extension of your brain. And so if you are creating a story, you look a certain position in your eye, or if you're feeling some kind of way, you look down, and it's complicated too much for this platform. But we help people to control those things. We help people to control their gestures. We help people with managing their breath, right? If you're speaking too quickly and people aren't getting you, maybe it's not that they need to listen more rapidly. It's probably you need to slow down, be more deliberate, enunciate more. And so we help people, again, it's all about having an assessment, being clear, and being honest. We help people if it's public speaking. I have a course that I've done for some of my leaders in public speaking, because we all present. If it's about their strategies for sharing information, persuading folks, or just going in there to humor folks, depending on what you're doing. And so once you know what the objective is, the intended message, then we can hone your skill set around building the strengths to deliver that or to receive that.
Okay. How do you approach leadership development for Black men who may face unique challenges and systemic barriers?
In this country, for sure, we're gonna face it, Charles. It's built into the fabric, but it's not an excuse. The idea of being a victim versus a victor is something I try to get away from. Yes, you call it for what it is, but you move on. See, Charles, once we recognize that the Calvary, as my buddy says, that we're waiting to save us, is not coming over the hill, it is us. We are the ones we've been waiting for, as my brother Sean says. And so once we recognize that, uh, it's not about asking for excuses or favors. We deserve to be at the table. And, a politician wisely said, sometimes we have to go in the room with our own table. And so in corporate or in business, at all, anywhere, when we deal with these issues, we just have to be damn good. Can't cuss on your show, and I wouldn't, but we have to be damn flipping good at what we do. We got to be the best at what we do. And so there is no shortcuts. There is no favors to be granted. Just show up and show out. See, I don't know if you have been there, Charles, but I've been in rooms at levels where I'm the only Black man in that room. And folks say, well, aren't you intimidated? No, I am gleeful because I see myself as an ambassador to represent at such a high level that I'm going to change the narrative if it's negative about who we are. And I think that's what we do. We got to stay harder, longer, and crack the code.
Oh, that's fair enough. You're right about one thing. We know that there's nobody coming to save us, but I think what where we're at a point now is that a lot of people that still try to work through and want to make things happen. I think what winds up happening, and just correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like once you get to going and then something happens to kind of like change things, it's kind of frustrating. And I think when it's frustrating, sometimes I think it causes a lot of people to either lash out, or they kind of give up, or they just feel like it's just not worth doing.
But who wins? When we give up, who wins? See,
Well, that's true.
giving up is not the answer because then you absolutely lose. If you have a 50% chance to win at anything you do by just showing up, right? But if you
I
don't
agree.
show up, you have 100% chance that you're going to lose. And so, again, there are times when we're knocking on the wrong door.
Mhm.
I have a client who has these blue ribbon companies that he's trying to get into because it looks good. He wants to do it, the Googles of the world. And yet, if he were with his skill set and knowledge base, if he started developing strategically networking and developing on the inside, right, relationships, allies with folks at the next tier, he could propel himself to the C suite and command a level of income that would suit him and his family. So I say sometimes the door is not opening, but it's because we fail to recognize it's not just one door out there to knock on. Sometimes we have to knock a little bit differently, right? If we've been trying it one way, we can't go through, then we go over or around. We have to, a lot of our thinking is flawed. Not a lot, but oftentimes it's a flawed thinking in terms of our approach, right? But we got to make sure, and I'm saying this is not easy. This sounds like I'm speaking from the pulpit and I'm not a part of the choir, but I've been there. I've been in organizations, and look, I have several strikes going against me. I'm a black man from a foreign country here, right? Believe it or not, I have a funny accent to some people, right? So there are things going against me when I walk into some of these rooms. I have to prepare and I have to make sure that I learn the code, and I have to go in, not to sell out. It's important to me to represent who I am and to be consistent. And if that's not good enough, why do I want to work with you anyway?
That's true. That is true. What impact do you believe mentorship has on career advancement and personal development?
Show me a leader or a winner that has not had a mentor, and I'll tell you he's fake. Mentoring is real. It's important because what a mentor does for you, a mentor has walked that walk and is going to tell you where the mines are, the minefields. A mentor is going to tell you where the mines are, the gold mines. A mentor is going to guide you to an experience that rather than go figure it out yourself, which is not always a smart way, he's going to or she's going to help you to decipher based on their own experience. And again, that's the difference between mentorship and coaching. There are coaches who, and I've doubled up with people, right? But there are coaches, when you think about coaching, Tiger Woods coach could never beat Tiger Woods. Michael Jordan coach could never beat Michael Jordan, right? None of these coaches are better or greater than the player, but what they have is they have seen through their experience, wisdom, and knowledge, they have seen enough to be able to challenge you to give your best. And so you can't do it alone. Mentoring, coaching, most important if you want success. And see, I'm selling the idea of coaching because black men oftentimes shy away from coaching. Oh, it's too expensive. But they can pack up and take off and go on a fishing trip on a weekend with their buddies that runs them $1,500, right? Between the liquor and all that stuff. For the same income or whatever, same money or whatever, you can level up so that you're not just fishing today, but you're feeding your family for a long period of time because we're sending you upstream through coaching, right? And so coaching is important, and every winner has had a coach. Every winner that I know. And by the way, Charles, let me just share a secret with you. In terms of mentoring, you can have a virtual mentor, and a virtual mentor in the way of may not be personal and one-on-one, but there are people who pour their souls out in terms of books, right? And so you can study the techniques and patterns and do what someone does, replicate the same impact and effect that you have on the world by studying and modeling someone who's gone before you.
So, how can leaders effectively address imposter syndrome and self doubt?
One of the strategies that I teach, and there are many ways, and I'll just again drop one in. And I'd invite, of course, anybody listening in on your platform to, at the end of the session, to let folks know that they can contact me for a non-obligatory one-on-one discovery call where I'll simply just lay out what's going on that's stopping you from your next level. And if somebody decides to take it and run with it, fine. If they decide to work with me to make sure I hold them accountable, fine as well. So what you said, look, I'm sorry, the question was what stops men?
No. How can leaders effectively address imposter syndrome and
Yes.
self doubt?
Thank you. So one of the strategies I use is the winner's circle or the golden circle. And it's a technique where physically we get someone to step within, and it can be just a mindset exercise. But you have demonstrated in your life wins, right, Charles? You have had
Yes.
some wins. We all have had wins. And even small wins should be celebrated. And
Right.
so we help people to recognize, because when we think about our lives, we're like a movie camera that's on a set, but frames what they want to bring into the public's view. So they're not framing the people on the back and the people on the side having lunch. They're framing the actors and actresses. And so we can do that too. How we frame our realities or what we perceive to be real and important is important to us in terms of getting to the next level. So if you are saying that you can't do this, we help people sometimes remember and recognize some of their past successes. I'll share a quick secret for you. When I train folks, even at the executive level, and certainly at the entry level, to level up and slaughter folks in interviews, I help them to craft what's known as an impact position or an impact statement. You want to know what that is, Charles?
What is that? What is that?
The impact statement, and you have seen it and heard about it, is where we literally redo that old CV or resume which just says, I did this. That's a job description. That's dull. That's boring. That's not winning anything. But an impact statement is to craft where you have won and it's measurable. You were able to raise $500,000 to stop gap such and such. You created impact greater than yourself by your activity, by your thinking, your strategy, your leadership. And once you can tell that story to yourself, it helps you to beat the imposter syndrome. But if you told that story to a potential employer, showing how your impact is going to fill a gap, you can see where this is going, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the more you can satisfy that your impact can fill gaps based on the position that you're looking for, the greater your opportunity to win. But imagine you're your own boss. So when you're in a situation where that imposter syndrome, and it hits us all, I get it all the time. But when it happens, I have to reframe and redirect.
So is this something that you see a lot of?
Yeah, that idea of the Paul syndrome again. People don't think it's possible because, the black man can't get a job in that position. It's just racism. We don't think it's possible. Oh, I don't have the ability, and today, that we can learn anything, the way that it's set up for us today. And worthiness, we don't think we're worthy or deserving. And so that imposter syndrome has several portals to affect us. And it's a matter of owning it, seeing it for what it is, and then blasting it out.
Well, can you tell us this? What steps do you recommend for creating a supportive and inclusive work environment?
We go back to the idea of validating people beyond yourself. And we talked about emotional intelligence. I think when we do the assessment on who we are and we learn to be comfortable in our own skin, then we don't have to feel threatened by somebody else doing their thing. And we can give people permission to elevate by just showing up, supporting them. And we ourselves can elevate others, because by somebody else being great at what they do and being who they are, it doesn't take from us. In 2024, we're talking about a new era where we're looking at AI and augmented supports, and we're looking at virtual supports, and we're looking at all of these things, right? Generative support. The truth of the matter is that's diversity. And if we as humans can't compete, that's when we worry about losing our job. So we have to be diverse. I don't have all the answers about how to create the next bottle of water. But maybe if I brought a designer in, maybe if I brought a scientist in, I brought a collector of fluids in, that the EPA, if I brought other people in, now I have a compendium of thoughts and ideas and experience and wisdom. And so it only makes it richer, the quality of the experience that we give to the public whom we serve.
So, can you tell us, how do you help clients align their core values with their career choices?
Yeah, that's a lot of work. In fact, I spend a couple of weeks on that oftentimes. Um, your core values, and I want to put a distinction. There are two types of values. There is means values and core value, which we call end values. Means values is when somebody, for example, says, well, making money is important to me. Money is a means to an end. But what does money bring to you? Money brings freedom for some people, autonomy for others, power for others. That's the core value, right? The thing, the feeling, the state that you get. And so I help people to examine what is the ultimate state that you desire from a thing. And also, what won't you sell no matter what the price is? In terms of, is honesty important? Well, if honesty is important, you're not going to be selling numbers in the back of the room, right? So
Right.
when you are in alignment with these things, it's also important because it helps you in terms of your relationship. If values aren't in alignment or compatible, relationships will never work. So some people say, I'm going to change him or her when we get married or together. Forget about that. That doesn't work. You have to start off with that. Now, these are non-negotiable stuff, these values, if you're truly going to be feeling fulfilled. If you're living a lifestyle where you are not authentic, not in keeping with your values, then we're going to see that your identity is off key as well. So if you're not in alignment with your values, your identity is also false. And if you're
Okay.
living with a false self, it's the start to mental illness.
Oh wow. Coach Wayne, I gotta tell you, I'm loving this interview because you're dropping a whole lot of nuggets. So I'm hoping that everybody out there in the audience are actually picking them up, and the trail is gonna lead back to something really, really great. Um, can you tell us how do you help clients align their core values? Well, we did that. What role does self-esteem play in achieving professional success?
So that's a funny question. Not funny, but I'm sorry. I'm just moving I'm working with three screens. And before we wrap up, if you don't mind, I don't know if there's a chat here, but I like to leave where people can connect. And for your
Oh,
listening audience.
we got a ways to go. I mean,
Oh, okay. Okay.
I was just giving you that wonderful compliment because this has been a really great interview at this
Thank
point,
you,
and I'm
sir.
just really happy for the knowledge that you're leaving to the audience.
Thank you. Thank you. So would you please, I'm sorry, I was distracted. Would you please ask the question again, sir?
What role does self-esteem play in achieving professional success?
Yeah, powerful. When we talk about identity, identity has three areas, three levels. One is self concept, self image, and self esteem. Self esteem is how you feel about yourself, right? And
Hmm.
if you don't feel good about yourself, oftentimes we deflect or we project on other people. So a person who is not feeling beautiful and wonderful about themselves will always see the ugliness in somebody else. When you can own your own flaws and love yourself nonetheless and feel good about yourself, there's something else that I help people with when I work with that component of self image, right, and self identity and self esteem, and that is self ideal. I help people to project on what ideally would you want to be and look like and feel like and so forth. And I try to keep it as real as possible, right? So that people, if you have genes that are 5 foot genes, don't see yourself being 7 feet 6 because that's just not going to work. So we keep it real. But learning acceptance. And so I help men, midlife men, to recognize that, as I said earlier, aging is an opportunity to start saging. What you have as you're entering into midlife or going through it is the collective experience, live experience and wisdom that somebody half your age, a third of your age, does not have. And so it's an opportunity to propel. It's an opportunity to excel because you've walked that road, and so you know where the trapdoors are or are not. You can leverage. And I help men also to recognize that when we talk about values, for true fulfillment, no matter how much money you make, you can get a great burial, your family can live well, but you personally will have to leave that. And so I went today to visit a family member in the hospital, right? During he was seriously ill. And one of the things that he missed out on was the opportunity to spend more time with family, with relatives. He was on a mighty cause, yes, for his church and doing that work. But his family is in tears, wondering, is he going to come home? And so he is feeling regrets and remorse that he didn't spend enough time doing what he called quality things with his wife and children at this stage. And he's slightly younger than I am. You know, he's I got him by a few years. So he has not even touched 60 yet. And one of the things that we have to recognize is be grateful. Self-esteem is about being grateful. My wife and I, since COVID started, we have a ritual that we do every single morning. We tell each other what we're grateful for. And one of the things we're grateful for is the opportunity to be who we are. Just start out with that, simply being grateful that you have breath, that you are above the ground when you get up, and that you are a gift. Listen, man, God didn't make any mistakes. So feel good about the fact that you're a product of the creation.
Okay. Could you share a memorable moment from your coaching practice that exemplifies transformational change?
Okay. I know we sort of addressed that with the professional who shared success. We talked about that. Let me share one that's happening. I have a young man, and by the way, even though my niche says midlife, I want to tell you that if not more than 50%, close to more than 50% of my the men I work with are not so-called midlifers yet. They're working towards it. So they're trying to make sure that they don't get tied up in the midlife crisis. So these are men mid-30s, late 30s, or even, right? A lot of the men. And so I'm working with this one brother who, let me share this with you. He had a porn addiction. And a long story short, it meant his relationships were not healthy, toxic as they call it, right? I don't like to throw that word around, but his relationships were not healthy. And when we did the work together, I tracked it all the way back based on what his affinity was in porn to a type form, an archetype of a female. And that turned out to be his domineering single mother when he was younger. You know, get me? He doesn't want to have sex with his mother. But once we were able, through the work, to realize that his mother, raising him as a single mother, would punch him in the face, grab him up, because that's what she knew, rather than him going on the street and get it that by the cops. She took care of him before he slipped. But he was powerless. He felt resentment and he was powerless. He wasn't going to hit his mother back. But he grew up wanting power and control over that type form that his mother represented. And so his addiction to porn, which spilled out to the women that he chose, was about a certain type form. Once we were able to recognize this and he saw it for what it was, the transformation started taking place. Because again, we talk about barriers and limiting beliefs. Most of the things that are stopping us, we are not even awake to them consciously. They're driving us. And so that is a story. So he's giving up porn is what I'm trying to say. I don't know when I say giving up porn, I'm sure he masturbates to pornography, but it doesn't drive him. He's not late for work anymore because of porn. He's not sneaking off to go watch porn. That was an addiction, a problem. And that's a major win in terms of the transformation. He's
Oh, wow.
actually having a much more respectful and healthy relationship with his significant other as we speak.
Oh, wow. That's a major, major breakthrough.
Yeah. And I have many stories similar to that one, not using pornography, but
Uh,
people who have traits and habits that we just go through and we've normalized, you know, rousing their consciousness and awareness, as we spoke earlier, to what these are. And the important thing is you have to be willing to change. Nothing happens if I meet someone and on a scale of 1 to 10 for coaching, you know, they are at a 5 or a 4, they're not ready, and I'm not going to take their money, even if it, you know, was available immediately. No way.
okay. What strategies do you use to help clients set and achieve meaningful goals?
Commitment and accountability. You must do the work. Um, so once we start off with an agreement, sort of a contract, right? I support you in the work by giving you real action steps, practical, implementable action steps. But I don't want to hear about the dog eating your supper, right? That's an excuse. That's an alibi. That's irrational. That's weakness. And if you want change, you have to change. And so I hold your feet to the fire. You know, listen, I've raised 4 adult kids and 3, as you heard, adult stepkids. I'm not a kid anymore, so I don't have time to kid around. If you're serious about the work, and you know, we can smile, we can laugh, but this is how I was when I played sports. When I'm on the field, I'm playing to win. And so if you're playing on my team, I'm playing to have you win. We're going to win together if you win. And so when men come to me and they don't do the necessary work, and it's not necessarily easy, I didn't say it's easy, it may be simple, but it's not easy. Working on yourself can be ugly, right? There's this
Yeah.
self that we present on social media. We go through pictures and we take the ones with the stuff in the corner of our eye, we get rid of that. The ones with the stuff in our teeth, we get rid of that. We put on all the fine, you know, linen and all that. And that's what we present, the best self. But it's not necessarily the true self or the real self. The work that I do with men, you have to be willing to see the ugly you so that we can have the breakdown to get to the breakthrough. And I'm going to hold you accountable.
I like that. How do you encourage clients to embrace continuous learning and personal growth?
The will of the client, again, readiness. You know, Francis Cress, Dr. Francis Cress Wesleyan, the late great psychologist, she had a book called, um, oh my God,
The ISIS papers?
my brother. Leaders are readers. Leaders are readers. My brother Charles, the ISIS papers. The
Yes,
ISIS papers.
exactly.
In that book, she talks about the language that we use. Words are so powerful, so important. You don't
Yes.
understand until you understand that words are very potent.
Very.
And in that book, she says there was a culture of black men that called themselves baby and were going to my crib. Well, we have to remove ourselves from that kind of thinking and behavior, right? Because we're not babies and we're not infantile. But when we do things like walk around with the lollipop as it's cool and our pants dropping, like those things, images and words can create us or destroy us. And oftentimes we don't recognize that we're not the ones creating these cultures, the counterculture, so to speak, that's destroying us. We like it, but we don't understand that it's being pushed and not even being initiated by us. And when we buy into stuff like that and become infantile, right? Nobody respects us. In Jamaica, the term is you're a boy, right?
What does that mean?
You're a boy.
Okay.
Calling a grown man a boy. And we have
Oh.
heard that before. We've heard that in slavery, right?
Mhm.
Cops
Right.
pull us over in some of these places in the South and they'll call us boys. But if you want respect, you got to earn respect. And
Mhm.
part of that is to carry yourself with a certain decorum, a certain way, the language you use, the way you stroll. Walk like you're a king with your head up high. I'm 6'3". When I walk in a room, I look 6'7" because that's how I'm carrying myself. My chin is up, my chest is out, and I'm striding across the room. My phone is where it should be, not in front of me. You understand? So there are things that we have to do. And so readiness for growth is not something that I'm going to beat into someone. You have to know that part of your elevation is to forever want to renew yourself and to learn. There's nothing called true dormancy even in nature. You're either living or you're dying, but you're doing something. So if you're not growing, you're decaying. And part of growing is to renew yourself. And you do that through acquiring new information and applying it. And you have to have a love for that if you want to compete and win in this world.
What advice would you give to black men that want to improve their public speaking skills?
Yeah, I was an area director for Toastmasters and started a club at the last corporate company that I worked at, and so I'm an advocate for places like Toastmasters Club, and you can find them anywhere that you live within 10 square miles or 5 square miles of wherever you live in this country. But so practice is what I'm getting at. It doesn't have to be a Toastmasters Club, but you practice and become a good listener. By becoming a great listener and identifying people who speak well and communicate effectively, you mimic them, you model them, right? You pattern them. And it's okay. It's okay. Pattern the people. And one of the things with great leaders is they slow down. They make sure they think. And you might go through and be falling over your ahs and arms a lot. But part of that is because we are afraid of silence. And so when we learn that silence is powerful as well, we can speak, pause for a cause, think about the next set of words that we want to share or send out to the universe. We practice this enough, my brothers Charles, eventually we'll be okay. We'll be okay. And so I have a public speaking course that I actually do offer. And there are some brothers who just come to me for presentation skills, and I'll work with them over a series of weeks to get that right. If they are local with me here in South Florida, I'll take them to one of the clubs that I'm visiting on a regular basis or occasionally. But if they're not, I would recommend to them that in addition to the work I do with them, that they join a local Toastmasters club.
I tell you this, Coach Wayne. I
Yes,
know
sir.
with you being in South Florida, there are multiple numbers of course young black men and black men in midlife that should be out there that needs to know these things that you're doing.
Yes, sir.
And so we got to find a way to actually help you with that, because this is some good stuff.
Thank you.
And so here, as we come to the end of this the interview and this broadcast, can you tell the people how can they contact you, and anything you'd like for them to know in closing?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me, is there, can I drop a link, a couple links inside the chat, or how does that work?
um Actually, as far as like the chat goes, there's not any
Right.
other person right now actually
Okay.
here other than you and I, but they're listening live around. But
Okay.
what you can do is you can get those out to me, and I can actually get those out so people can get them.
I'll give it to you right after the show, then, my brother. And I want to thank you for the opportunity for the platform. Truly, you're serving the people by giving brothers like myself an opportunity to share a little that we understand and know about corralling the energy and power that is rightfully ours to exhibit as black men and boys. And so I thank you for that. I know you're bringing my brother on. I saw him after me, brother. What's his name? He's in the series. Sean.
Oh,
Now,
you talking about
yes, sir.
Silver?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He's part of the tribe that I belong to with Black executive males. But powerful brother to a motivator. So you're doing great work. So I want to thank you and celebrate you, my brother Charles. Congrats and thank you for this work. Um, People can reach out to me, and when I say people, I actually serve women too, though I don't publicize that.
Right.
But if brothers are serious about examining where they're going to go and willing to invest in themselves, and sometimes people say, well, I don't want to pay money to do this. I always say this: there's a price to pay and a cost to get where you want to be. You have to decide, is the cost worth the price that you'll have to pay for not having the information and support you need? And in most cases, the answer, if you're honest with yourself, is no. Right? So, um, Wayne Dawson, I'm going to give you, it's Wayne Dawson at VIPtransformativeliving.com. That's the email address. Wayne Dawson, that's WAYNEDAWSON, VIP, and I'm sorry, Wayne Dawson at VIPtransformativeliving.com. And the VIP represents values, identity, and purpose. And then, of course, I'll send you my links in terms of my channels, Facebook, and all of the others. I'm primarily on LinkedIn. That's where I live most of my time because that's where most of the business folks are. And if you wanted me to do this, I offer a couple of free books, ebooks. One is Forever Young, How to Stay Young No Matter How Old You Get. And the other one, and also I can share my newsletter. So, Charles, you let me know, man. I have many ways for people to get value and people to be in touch, and I'm happy to share it with your listening audience. And all they have to do is to hit me up.
Yes, sir. What you can do, so we can make sure that we get this out to your people,
Yes, sir.
is you send all of that to me via email,
Yes,
because
sir.
what I will do is I will definitely do a wonderful blog post for you as well. That
Thank you,
will
sir.
have all of your links and connections, so people will know exactly how to get in touch with you. And when the post is done, I'll email you the link to my blog so you can see it.
Who says angels always have wings, my brother? Thank you.
Yes, sir. Well, I want to thank all the people that spent the time with us this evening to listen to Wayne, as Wayne gave an enormous amount of nuggets and a lot of knowledge and a lot of good things that can help all of us that's in the community. That's black men, that's young black boys, that is even young black women. So please follow this man, get some of this knowledge, and please do something to improve your life, as we all should, and we can do it together. And I want to thank Wayne for spending some time with us. And I also want to tell the audience I thank you guys for spending the time with us. Please join us tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, as we have another great show that's taking place. And again, Wayne, I want to thank you. And we look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. And for those that are on the YouTube channel, please hit the subscription button, hit the notifications button in case you missed the show, and you'll always be able to catch it.
Yes,
Again,
sir.
thank you, Wayne, and
My
I want
pleasure,
you all
sir.
to have a wonderful evening.
You're welcome. Thank you, sir. I look forward to chatting with you some more. Have yourself a wonderful